On the evening of November 12, 1996, two giants were hurtling through the skies over Delhi. One was climbing, and one was descending. Just 1,000 feet separated them, but that gap would soon vanish in a heartbeat. A bright explosion in a night sky, followed by debris falling into fields. A witness, a U.S. pilot flying nearby, later described it, saying, "We noticed out of our right hand a large cloud lit up with an orange glow. Two distinct fireballs emerged from the cloud. This is the story of the Charkhi Dadri disaster, the deadliest mid-air collision in aviation history. The tragedy begins in Shymkent, Kazakhstan. A chartered Ilyushin 76, a modified Russian military transport, takes off for New Delhi. On board are 27 merchants from Kyrgyzstan who have paid for this flight to buy Indian textiles to sell back home for a profit. At the same time, in New Delhi, a massive Saudi Arabian Boeing 747 prepares to depart for Jeddah. It is packed with 289 passengers, many of them Indian laborers returning to their jobs in the Gulf to support their families. Neither crew knows it yet, but their paths are about to cross. In 1996, Delhi's airspace was an anomaly. Unlike major airports with separate corridors for arrivals and departures, Delhi used a single corridor Gulf 452 for both. Commercial flights had to squeeze into this single highway because India's defense policy prioritized military airspaces. Guiding the planes that night was experienced approach controller V.K. Dutta. He was working with outdated primary radar that displayed planes only as glowing dots. Crucially, this system did not show altitude. To know a plane's height, Dutta had to ask the pilots. The Saudi 747 was cleared to climb to 14,000 feet. The inbound Kazakh Ilyushin was cleared to descend to 15,000 feet. Dutta warned the Kazakh crew of the oncoming traffic. Identified traffic 12 o'clock, reciprocal, Saudi Boeing 747. His plan was standard, let them cross with 1,000 feet of vertical separation. The Saudi pilots followed instructions meticulously, leveling off at exactly 14,000 feet. But inside the Kazakh plane, a fatal error was in motion. The Kazakh plane had a 5-person cockpit, but only the radio operator spoke enough English to handle ATC calls. Every instruction from the tower had to be translated into Russian for the pilots. To make matters worse, the Soviet-built plane measured altitude in meters, while the Indian controllers used feet. The crew was playing a deadly game of Russian whispers while flying at 300 miles per hour. Although the radio operator reported reaching 15,000 feet, flight data later revealed the plane was actually higher, then continued to descend below its assigned limit. As the planes entered a cloud bank, the radio operator on the Kazakh jet suddenly realized they were too low. "Hold the level! Don't descend!" He screamed for the pilots to climb, but the captain hesitated, asking, "What level were we given?" It was too late. A sudden flash, and the massive 747 emerged from the clouds. The Ilyushin slammed into the Boeing 747. The Kazakh plane's tail sheared through the Saudi jet's wing and stabilizer. Black screen now. What we hear is the sound of a massive thunderclap. The witness on the ground reported, "I saw this fireball like a giant burst of gas on fire, followed by a sound that was greater than any clap of thunder." The wreckage fell over 6 miles of farmland near the town of Charkhi Dadri. Rescuers arriving on the scene found a horrifying sight. One first responder recounted, "I realized that the clumps that I saw all around me were either the remnants of the aircraft or dead bodies. All 349 people on board both aircraft perished. 0 survivors. It remains the world's worst mid-air collision." Investigators found the tail of the Kazakh plane at the start of the wreckage trail, proving it was below the Saudi jet at the moment of impact. The inquiry concluded that the Kazakh crew failed to maintain their altitude, likely due to a language misunderstanding where the pilot confused the traffic information, the location of the Saudi jet at 14,000 feet for a new clearance to descend. The disaster forced a revolution in Indian aviation. The government mandated the installation of secondary radar and the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, or TCAS, on all aircraft. It also successfully petitioned for mandatory English proficiency for pilots worldwide. Today, the skies over Delhi are safer, with separate corridors for arrivals and departures. But these changes came too late for the 349 souls who were lost in the darkness over Charkhi Dadri. If you want to know more about the crucial changes that came from this tragic incident, subscribe and hit the bell for more deep dives into aviation history. Thanks for watching.